So, good morning, good afternoon, good day, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining in on our August Wellness Hour. I see some new faces and some regular faces, so glad you could join us. This month, I'm super excited to have two individuals that really led a wellness effort and discussion on our wonderful CCAL side of CAI, and bringing awareness and trying to reshape the stigma that mental health can have in the industry, but specifically with attorneys who support community associations. And so David Graff and Lori Poole are joining us this morning, afternoon, to be able to speak from their experience, what they've learned, their journeys around mental health and wellness, and how they continue to show up in their practice and engaging in those conversations. Both are CCAL fellows, so major kudos to them for that. But we're excited to hear both of your stories. So, with that being said, who would like to go first in sharing your journey and what sparked your effort in bringing the discussion forward?
Go for it, Laurie.
Okay, I guess I'll start. Also, both David and I have been, and so I want to make sure everybody knows what CCAL is.
Yes, good point.
Everybody knows what a PCAM is, but not everybody knows what a CCAL is. So CCAL is the College of Community Association Lawyers. It is through CAI, and it is for those of us who have chosen to or have fallen into the practice of this area of law, representing homeowners associations. And to be admitted into CCAL, there is an application process, and CCAL admits people who have attorneys who have gone above and beyond to educate and advocate on behalf of homeowners associations. So it's I think there's now, I don't know, I think 180-ish CCAL fellows across the country. So I had the privilege of serving on the CCAL Board of Governors, and I was president of CCAL in 2022. And in 2021, as I was approaching my presidency year, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, Amy Tinetti, and also our current CAI national president, Matt Ober. And Matt, who had also been a CCAL president, Board of Governors president, had asked me, what are your initiatives going to be for your year as president of CCAL? And I had kind of been kicking around an idea, this was 2021. I was going to be president in 2022. We were coming out of the pandemic. And I just really started to notice that people, and I actually had a personal experience with a close family member who during the pandemic was having difficulty and reached out and said, I think I want to start seeing a therapist, which of course I supported 100%. And I was really impressed with this family member being very open about their struggles, about their journey. And so I really just got this sense that I think more of us struggle with mental health issues than we talk about. And so I really, and especially as lawyers, I will say, I think we have to be seen as being the strong people, we're the helpers, right? We're helping people. And I mean, so are managers as well, but you managers are relying on us to help you and help the boards through things. So we really are seen as being that kind of stoic, steely, infallible people. And I really had this sense that I think there's a lot of lawyers that are struggling. I don't think we feel safe and comfortable talking about it. And I felt like this was something I just felt empowered to do it. And so I mentioned that one of my initiatives was attorney wellness, mental health, talking amongst ourselves as attorneys. And the reaction was interesting because Matt said to me, "Oh, that's great. We can talk about how we as lawyers can help our clients and our managers that we work with their," and I said, "No, that's what we do. We deflect from ourselves and we're the problem solvers. That's what we do." And I said, "No, I want to turn the focus on us, what we're experiencing, and have an honest conversation amongst ourselves as lawyers, saying this is a tough job and we struggle." And I know for myself, I have struggled with anxiety certainly my entire adult life, maybe my childhood as well, probably definitely my childhood as well. And I just was not raised in talking about it. I didn't talk about it with anybody. I hid it from people. I would have severe anxiety attacks and I just had to hide it. And it took me 20 years of suffering before I sought help, before I finally started seeing a therapist, somebody that specialized in anxiety, and got help. And I really couldn't have been standing on that stage as president of CCAL if I hadn't gotten the help that I got, and that I still see a therapist. I had my appointment earlier this morning. So I will say I was nervous about bringing this to a group of lawyers. Look, we're academics. We're in our heads all the time. And I felt like there's a lot of CCAL fellows who are very academic, and I thought, well, maybe some of the expectation as being president of CCAL is I needed to have a more academic type initiative, and here was something not academic at all. But I just felt strongly about it, and I had to push through my insecurity about what are these CCAL fellows going to think when I say we need to have an honest conversation about what it is to be a lawyer and mental health struggles as a lawyer, and look at ourselves and support each other and get rid of the stigma about mental health issues, and have an honest conversation. So that's what I did, and I don't know what people thought, and I don't really care what people thought. I did hear from a lot of people that they were glad that I had brought it up, and what my suspicion was true, was correct. We struggle. As I got ready for my speech that I had to give at the law seminar that year, I did a lot of research on the American Bar Association website. They've got an amazing attorney wellness section. They did a big study. It's now, I think, been 10 years. I think it was in 2016, about the sustainability of the lifestyle of a lawyer, that it is not sustainable. The levels of depression, anxiety, suicide amongst lawyers as a group actually rivals, and in some cases surpasses, physicians. That it is such at a high level, that focusing as attorneys on our mental health and well-being is essential for this area, this profession, to continue. And that was really eye-opening for me as well. So that's kind of my story. I still struggle with anxiety. This year has been really difficult for me for whatever reason. My anxiety level I was seeing my therapist every other week, but I had to go back to every week because I just have been struggling for the last, I don't know, 6 months, probably this year. And I'm not really sure why, but I will say that what I do, the practices I've learned, relaxation, that's a big part of it. I do relaxation exercises 10 times a day. I'm not kidding, 10 times a day. Learning to relax myself, learning to not scare myself with my thoughts, which are pretty scary, is a big part of my recovery and my journey with this. And I'm feeling a lot better. I have felt better the last few weeks. In fact, this was the first week in a long time that I was able to report to my therapist I had no panicky feelings. So
That's wonderful.
Anyway, that's my story. That's my journey. That's how I came to introduce this, at least to CCAL.
And we are glad that you did because I know from the last two law seminars I've attended, the conversation continues. And so it's not anything, I don't want to say like earth shattering. It's part of the normal day to day conversations at law seminar and recognizing the support and resources that people need. And I think Lex, you just gave Lex like a happy dance vibe saying you do all of your practices throughout the day. So
Yeah,
David,
so
what about you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
somebody just asked what my relaxation. So I actually do have I have a I have it actually was a CD, I think, when I first started my program. It's been 20 years since I started. Um, and one of them is kind of, you go through your body and you tense different parts. You tense your muscles and then you relax. So that's one of them, and that's about 11 minutes. And then the other one is a scene. It's a guided scene. It's a stream, and you're looking up at the trees and the wind, and you're hearing the stream and a leaf coming down the stream. And that's what I do. And I do 4 active sessions a day. And then, or I guess I do 5 active sessions a day and then 5 where it's in the background.
Perfect.
So,
David, what about you and your journey?
Oh man, how much time do you have? No, uh, I grew up in Connecticut, and when I was in the first grade, my mother killed herself, and my brother and I were raised by my dad, who was a broke, you know, between the cornfields and oil fields of Southern Illinois, which is actually further south than Louisiana in the United States, not geographically, but mentally. Taken in by the neighbors next door, empty nesters. 2 years later, the lady died. We watched her get hauled out of the house by a volunteer fire department that my brother later served on for 35 years. And what we were taught by two very strong men who both fought. My dad fought in Korea, and our neighbor fought in World War II. In fact, it landed on D-Day, and who was a drill instructor. We were taught, both my brother and I, feelings are indulgent. Feelings are for the weak, and all you have to do is work, and all will be rewarded. And so I took that at face value, and so ended up as a lawyer. Worked really hard. Got a partnership at 29, and the guy in the office next to me was 50 years older than me, and he still came into the office every morning at 6:30. And I thought, what in the hell am I doing? I can't do this for 50 more years. I couldn't. And so I ended up giving up the partnership, and I went back to cutting trees, which I had done as a kid. We were working constantly, and then took a job at a HOA law firm that had sued one of my shopping center clients. And I've been in the HOA world ever since. And I was looking for this feeling. I couldn't admit to myself, it was not in my consciousness that I was doing all this stuff, working hard, seeking a feeling. And I thought that as I had these milestones, that feeling that I hadn't defined, I haven't even recognized it as a feeling, would materialize. And then when I got everything that I'd wanted, right? I had no earthly concerns, from a material plane. And I was miserable. And I was like, wow, I felt like there was no point in living. And so I had to figure out how to survive, quite frankly, because it's like if you planned your life around a Ironman triathlon for 5 years and then you finished it, you have this same, they call it the after Ironman depression syndrome, where you just kind of are adrift because you don't have anything galvanizing your life. And I had to figure out this emotional aspect of mine that just didn't exist. So that was what set me on a path of learning martial arts. And from the martial arts, I started studying Zen formally, where they hit you on the shoulder with a stick to keep you alert. It sounds brutal, but it actually is super effective. Did that now for 20 plus. This is my 26th year of meditation. And started to understand a little bit of the vast difference in space between my heart and my head. And the law masks that, what I would say, dysfunction perfectly. It rewards it, right? And so, you know, after Laurie's the president had the courage to come forward. And I remember talking to you, Laurie, like, geez, I don't know if I want to get on the stage and talk about this stuff. That took a lot of guts. I mean, extraordinary amount of courage for you to do that. And I think it was really well received. And later on, when I took her, I don't know if I took over after Laurie, but somebody, if it was somebody, they were definitely unremarkable. And the question is, do I want to talk about the Corporate Transparency Act for the 300th time, or do we want to talk about how we can do better? And we talk in CAI about loving where you live. Well, what's more close than the body and consciousness in which you inhabit? So it was kind of a natural conversation, especially given the stats on the practice of law. It is dysfunctional as can be. Suicide, I mean, I worked for a guy who was making millions of dollars a year in the 80s, and he was a crackhead. Literally, he was smoking crack in the 50th floor bathroom, and he'd be working for 56 hours at a time straight doing I he was before my time, but apparently doing great work until it all collapsed. So for me, it's like, okay, there's a place for everything. And many of us, including myself, or especially myself, focus on one thing to the exclusion of everything else. And that doesn't really leave much focal width on living a life that you would look back on and say, yeah, that was worth it. So that was how I kind of fell into this journey of trying to figure it out. And I coached lawyers, ironically, on burnout. And I was talking to a couple of lawyers and saying, hey, I'm going to refine my pitch. Can I spend 20 minutes with you on the phone? And three of the five that I talked to within a span of a week, they said, hey, I love what you're talking about. But if I went to my firm administrator and said they have to pay for a continuing legal education credit and there's burnout anywhere in that title, I could be fired. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? Because to many of us, it's an admission of weakness. And I was like, okay, well, I have to use a different code word than that because that's obviously very triggering because it implies weakness. And so it's just fascinating to me. All of this stuff is becoming more interesting every day. So, oh, and by the way, I didn't have a similar anxiety issue with Laurie, but a couple times a month for probably 20, 25 years, I would see something on my computer, or I would think of a case or a letter that I wrote, and I would leave the office, and I knew right then that I would stay up the entire night worrying about it. And eventually, the brain just kind of tires out like you're fighting a tarpon on a fly line. And then I would be okay. And then it would happen the following week, Friday, always on a Friday, always when there's nothing I could do about it. And I was talking to Lori, and she was mentioning her anxiety. I'm like, oh, maybe that's anxiety. It never even occurred to me to put a label on it. I just like, oh, that's just how my brain works. And once I was able to label it, thanks to Lori, it's like, okay, well, that's anxiety. And now I actually break it down into four parts of, why am I stressed? Is it that I made a mistake? Is it that I'm worried about doing the work? Is it because I'm caregiving, as it were, emotionally to the people that are fighting me? Or is it just linguistic momentum of continuing to say that I'm stressed, even though I don't have any reason to think that I am? So thank you for that, Lori.
Well, and I remember because when we had that conversation and you mentioned Friday nights, I told you that a lot of my anxiety attacks would happen on Friday night too,
no.
because a lot of it was it was definitely work focused, and you can't do anything. When I'm laying in bed, I've gone to bed on a Friday night, and though I'm just like all these things, it hits you because what am I going to do on Friday night? I'm not going to be calling my client. I'm not going to be doing any of that. So a lot of my anxiety attacks were on Friday nights. There's something about Friday night. I don't know. So
Yeah, it's just I think at least for me, when it was the work day or a work week, I felt like I was more in control because work was my safe space, and it still to some degree is. And when I'm not in that safe space, it's almost like I have no anchor to steady my confidence that everything's going to be okay. But yeah, I don't do that very much anymore. Every once in a while, I'll have it and I'll kind of chuckle and think, oh yeah, I used to do this all the time.
yeah.
And
I
it's
remember one of the very first sessions I had. I mean, this was like, is I kind of realized that I would go to bed at night and I would think about all the things I had to do the next day. And it pointed out to me that maybe that's not productive for my anxiety. Maybe that's not a productive way of doing it. And I was able to stop it right away. And 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 that, but and so that habit. And one of the things that was probably the most comforting to me, and it was very early on when I started receiving treatment, was that anxiety is a learned behavior. It is learned and you can unlearn it. So that was, for somebody who I literally hid this from everybody in my life, my husband, my kids, my parents, everybody. I literally for so many years just suffered. And because I thought there was something wrong with me, I thought that it just said a lot about me. And when I heard, again, one of the first few sessions was, this is a learned behavior and you can unlearn it. You can learn, you're having unproductive thoughts and unproductive habits, and um, you can unlearn those habits and learn more productive thoughts and more productive habits that are better for you. That was incredibly comforting to me to hear right away. And so that recognizing that, yeah, me going to bed, thinking of my to-do list for not only the next day, but probably the next, 5 years of my life. No wonder I was having anxiety attacks in the middle of the night. And that was my frame of mind when I went to bed. So now I go to bed and I think about oceans and beautiful things and calming things.
Yep.
That's
So
awesome.
for both of you, now you've identified resources and ways to cope through your journey. Are you more aware of those around you now? So whether it's a board member or a manager or, a resident that you're dealing with, are you more aware of their potential situation and find yourself wanting to coach them or to give them advice? Or how do you take what you've learned and bring it to the greater environment around you?
I try never to coach without permission. That was one of the rules when I learned it, which is they don't want to hear it. And if they want to hear, if they ask, I'll be glad to do it. But I almost never do that. What I refocus on is my ability to hold the space, which is something that was super helpful for me to learn. So that if there is an opportunity to, engage in this conversation, I can. But no, I almost never tell people, well, that's because you're worried about X, Y, and Z, or this is your problem. I don't know. I just find it counterproductive, frankly.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Dave. I don't know that I do that either, because I do feel like I'm still learning how to deal with this. I'm still, like I said, this year has been really tough for me. My anxiety level has been the highest that it has been in a number of years. Really disappointing after working as hard as I work. And I will say for me, when I started out, I and again, I feel like everybody really needs to figure out what works for them. I think it's a very individual thing. I think things that work for me may not be things that work for somebody else. And there's no judgment, no judgment at all. For me, did not want to go on medication. I didn't want to take an anti-anxiety medication. I didn't want to take an antidepressant. I don't know if I was depressed, probably was, probably am. But I did not want to do this with medication. And even earlier this year, when I was struggling so much, I had people in my life telling me I should go on medication. I had my doctor telling me I should go on medication. And I just still felt like I didn't want to do that. For me, I mean, that's just a choice that I wanted to make for me. So, and it was tough. I will tell you, it was tough. So I still feel like I'm learning. I'm not the expert in this. I'm still learning. So who am I to give somebody advice? I can certainly share my experience and what I've been through and what works for me. But I do feel like and be empathetic. I think I can understand if somebody were to come to me, and people do. People come to me and they tell me what they're going through. I certainly have a lot of empathy for that and a lot of understanding. I can tell people what works for me. One of the first things I learned too was caffeine. Caffeine is not good for people that have anxiety. I also am a highly sensitive person. I have a high sensitive personality. Caffeine also not good for that. So that's one of the first things is I had to, not that I was never a big coffee drinker, thank goodness, but I really limit caffeine. I draw the line at chocolate. I am not eliminating chocolate.
I think a lot of people would too.
Right? Yeah, I need my chocolate. It looks like Lexi, you want to say something?
I love
Are you muted?
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh,
We can
very
now.
faintly. Yep. I do my best work when I'm muted.
That better? I just wanted to chime in, Melissa, because I love that question. And so, I mean, you guys know my energy. So I found something that worked for me, and I want to like shout it from the rooftops, right? And I love the answers you both gave because it's so true, right? You're not gonna. Part of my practice is mindfulness, and part of mindfulness is non-judgment. So when you're interacting with someone and you find yourself like diagnosing them, that's sort of a sign that you need to look inward, right? And so I guess what I want to say is if you find the thing that works for you and you want to shout it from the rooftop, it's forums like this where you can do that, right? Or you can raise your hand to speak, or you can lead a practice where people come, right? They're invited to come. But I just wanted to chime in because that's exactly how I feel. Like I walk around and I'm like, try this thing. It's so great. And the clouds parted, right? And, I feel like I feel where that question came from. And that's how I would comment to it.
Well, and I remember, I believe it was you and Melissa that did a presentation. I think it was at CAI National. And, I know Lex, you talked a lot about meditation and stuff. And I think Melissa, you were the one that said, yeah, I tried it.
Nope.
Can't do it. I'll go out on a run. I'll go out on a run. But, and that was really eye-opening. I'm probably more the Melissa route. Relaxation, I think relaxation exercises to an extent is a meditation practice to an extent, sort of. But, I've tried meditation. It's not true meditation. It's not for me. And that's, you really do have to find what works for you. But I think being willing to have the conversation and get ideas, from people as to what works for them, understanding that, and you take a little here and take a little there and find what works for you.
Yeah, the thing about meditation, I think, oh, sorry if I cut somebody off.
No, go ahead.
It is just my opinion, doesn't, and again, it doesn't hold well to across all the population, and I know people say, well, this is my meditation and that is my meditation and cats are my meditation and whatever. My hard style response, right, the Zen style would be, no, meditation is your meditation. And what's interesting, I think, for me, is more of it's almost like, they call it a practice where you're cultivating this space in your brain between stimulus coming in and words going out or thoughts or judgments arising. And it doesn't ever seem to work for me like you might expect on TV when you're in the crisis. And I think for me, it's almost like preparing the ground for this poisonous seeds that are going to drop out of the sky. But when they drop, for me, hard exercise is a much better way to clear my mind and to reduce my stress levels. But it's been it's completely rewired my brain for the positive. So for me, it's, I think people come into meditation like, oh, I can't do this. And I'm not talking about you, Laurie, or you, Melissa. And it's kind of a really slow, agonizing process that can take place over many, many years. But over time, you look back and you're like, okay, yeah, it made a difference. So I would encourage anyone who's like, nah, it's not for me. My wife says that, oh, it's not my thing. And I'm like, well, okay. But you might try it and it's pretty intense just to sit there with your thoughts and watch your mind just go bananas, right? It's pretty cool. So, because that's what our brain does, right? It just creates thoughts and attaches onto things, like anything that's going by. And it's when you start to see how unrestrained our natural minds are, you're like, wow, it's amazing that we can even get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. So, David, for you, something that I always enjoy that you do on LinkedIn is your sense of humor and wit around our industry.
Oh,
Um, do you find that as a way to de-stress or like
no.
what brought about the humor that you bring to our industry?
Yeah. It's I write the stuff on LinkedIn. I do have two LinkedIn accounts. One's my lawyer coaching side, and the other's the that's kind of been dormant, but I've reactivated it. And the HOA side is for me, I have a lot of friends who are managers, right? And most of the people that I deal with are amazing people that I am enthusiastic to be around. And I want to say the things that they can't say and be listened to about what it is that we all collectively share. That's why I do it. It's like, oh, this person is saying this. Oh, you're just the manager. Either you did too much or you did too little. Or you're to blame or you're not to. It's like, it's kind of these shifting sands of public perception that we're all trying to manage, right? Especially post pandemic. So it doesn't stress me out, but I think about it more than I want to. And a number of times I'm like, I'm paying attention to my thoughts. And if I'm spending time at home thinking of a reply to someone, I know it's kind of got its grip on me. So where I am now is I write these things and sometimes I argue with people, most times I don't. And it's actually been a really interesting lesson in letting things go because what people say on social media is just ghastly. I mean, some of these people are completely insane. Some of them are living on the couch and the proverbial couch in their mother's basement. And this is the highlight of their existence to drag other people down. And quite frankly, I don't want anything to do with that mindset. But you can't avoid it when you put something out there on social media. So it's been like, okay, I can engage with people. And for the most part, I don't get too many negative comments, but every once in a while, people call me out. And it's actually been helpful to kind of humble me and say, well, yeah, maybe I am full of myself, or maybe this is a stupid idea, right? Mathematically, it's going to happen. So, no, it's not like a cathartic exercise. I just want to say things about how we how we need to get along, right? And that's the irony of what it is that we do. We're kind of trying to help people live better lives in peace. And the irony is the amount of conflict that creates to try to bring peace to where people live is it's just beyond fascinating, I think.
Very true. So what boundaries do both of you set to try and keep your inner peace and make it through the week and not have that Friday night anxiety?
Well, so I actually I'm not on social media. I've never been on Facebook. I just, I actually said when social media came about, it's going to be the downfall of our society. I don't think I'm wrong.
No, probably not.
And I just, a lot of it is I'm on the computer all day long. The last thing I want to do at night is continue to be on the computer on Facebook or Instagram or any of those things. So I'm not on social media. The only social media I'm on is LinkedIn for work. And even this year, I've really taken a step back from it. I just couldn't do it this year. I've just been struggling too much, and I just need to really focus on other things. So that's a boundary for me. I also am, this job is 24/7, and I do have to set my own boundaries. I know that, and maybe this loses me clients. I don't know. If I look at emails over the weekend where I'm not in a position to be able to do something about it, respond, or like Dave said, it's gonna. I'm not going to be able to relax. I'm not going to be able to do anything else because if I see that email from a client that came in, it's going to nag at me, and I really don't look at my emails over the weekends. I set my boundaries. I that's one of the things I have to do. And I know that's easier said than done. And sometimes I do see, I kind of, Monday morning, I see kind of the conversation. I'm like, oh, they probably would have appreciated my answer, over the weekend. But I think it's okay to say, look, the weekends are mine. The weekends are mine, and I need to be able to recharge and do the things that I need to do over the weekends. So that's a boundary for me.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't set any boundaries, but and it's not anything formal because sometimes, you get the call and some of my board members and most of the managers that I trust have my cell phone number so that I can be available. And I got a call last night, oh, got a fire, water, all this stuff going on. Somebody got thrown in jail. Oh, geez. It's nice to be available. It's hard. It's kind of like eating potato chips with email though, right? Because when you open your phone or your computer, you kind of I get sucked in, right? And I want to solve all of the problems all at the same time. It makes my brain explode. And so, not dealing with email just as a way, it's almost like not having alcohol in your house. If you're trying to quit drinking, it's kind of easier to do that. And I think it's a place where we can renew, right? And I think managers in particular, I think I get a lot fewer emails than most managers. I don't know how we're going to sustain the management world going forward with all of these emails that are probably poor corporate practice, false sense of urgency. The method of communicating via email is disruptive to harmony. We can't communicate very effectively. And I think, if the management world is going to evolve, it's got to go back to where it used to be when you were hired for your wisdom, knowledge, expertise, and rational thoughts, as opposed to becoming a glorified filing clerk of emails that are mostly ridiculous. And if we could do that, where managers could go back to, board, you need to take action at a public meeting. I'm going to take my marching orders from there. I'm going to work on those marching orders until I have to deliver the next board packet, which is an update of what I've done when I wasn't bothered with 3,000 emails a week. Can you imagine how that would change? Everyone would, I think, would be better off. Board members would be willing to serve. Managers could do deep thought work instead of just swatting mosquitoes that are emails. And I think we're going to have legislation that pushes this world back to that place, just in a recognition of the skill set. It's just right now it's just compounding, and now we got AI and offshore people to help manage the emails, and I've said this, and I've gotten fired by boards who think I'm being lazy, but just you got to stop the addiction,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
You had a lot of clapping hearts, praise on that. Laurie, did you want to add anything to that? Because I mean, you touched on some very powerful pieces of the issues of our industry and why we reached the point of anxiety and mental health and struggles around wellness.
Yeah. So I've been a community association lawyer 33 years this year. Okay. And I mean, I can remember well, first of all, when I first started practicing, we didn't have email. We did not have email. We communicated by letter. So you wrote a letter, and then maybe, I don't know, 5 days later, you get a letter back in response, or phone calls. We had a lot of phone calls back then. And I also can remember going to town hall meetings, with the membership, where people applauded. They thanked the board. They thanked you as the lawyer. They were, I mean, again, that hasn't been the case in the last, 15 plus years of my practice, but I did experience it at the beginning of my practice. I think that, I do think setting boundaries is important. I really do think that setting boundaries, we are human beings. We are not machines. We're human beings. And we can't do our best work if we're not at our best. We just can't. And one of the aspects, again, of bringing this to the lawyers was for us to fulfill our ethical obligations as lawyers, to practice competently, to be competent. We have to be okay. And if we're not okay, we ethically cannot do our jobs. So I think setting boundaries is good. I think I remember having a conversation with Dave too about it's hard for us to find that time. We as lawyers need to have that time to think. And I was working on a really complicated contract over the last couple of days for a client, and I literally have to put my do not disturb on. I'm scheduling time on my calendar to get these tasks done, because otherwise I'm getting interrupted, I'm getting distracted, and I probably have ADHD. I probably have it. I don't even want to get diagnosed, but I'm sure I have it, because I see, that the team member, I'm a managing partner of my firm. I have lawyers that are coming to me and needing direction so they can move forward. And my inclination is to stop what I'm doing to help them, which is my job. But it also puts me in a position sometimes where I'm behind on what I need to get to my clients. So I think setting those boundaries, trying to be structured, recognizing that somebody else's emergency doesn't have to be your emergency. That's a big one for me is, I'll evaluate what somebody needs. If I'm in the middle, I can't get to it now, I can talk to you in an hour or whatever. If it is something, hey, I got this urgent matter. Yeah, sure. I'll drop something. But I just think trying to, and just remind ourselves to the industry has changed. People are so much more negative than they were when I first started out. Like I said, I can remember people at a town hall meeting applauding. Can you imagine? um, and I think the reality is, I don't know that we're ever going to get back to that. So we do have to adapt. And part of adapting for me is you got to look out for yourself to be able to do your best work and be your best for yourself and for your clients and your family, by the way.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's funny that you talk about that. And I look at my attention, and I think I'm ADHD too, but I'm not going to get the pass because I don't know if it would impact my law license, right? So, if you think of your attention as this fortress that you're in, and you have this moat, you have to build this moat around it and then decide when to let the drawbridge down. And as a manager, it's kind of hard to do, right? I was at a continuing legal education class in 95. And I remember it well. It was when I first started. And this lawyer said, and I don't mean to characterize physicians like this, but when someone comes into the doctor's office with a rash on their arm, the doctor applies the salve or puts the ointment on, and then the patient leaves with their rash on their arm and they're out of your office. And when you're a lawyer, and I would say extend that to a manager, the patient comes in and they drop the problem on your desk and they don't leave with it. They leave lighter by leaving you heavier. And that, to some extent, is the nature of the business. But I didn't realize over time how much I was, hand-wringing. And why do people do these things? Well, they just do. Right. And so now to me, it's like, okay, when am I going to let the drawbridge down? When do I have to let the drawbridge down? And how do I cut off, lines of attack on my attention? And with emails, manager getting email, I didn't get my pool key. The pool's too cold. The pool's this, had a leaf on it. I spent 40 minutes with a homeowner arguing how the manager had to drive out to the community to pick up a soup can lid that was in the parking lot because it was a safety hazard. And I'm like, well, could you put on rubber gloves and get some metal tongs and just throw it in the trash yourself if you're worried about someone getting killed by the soup can lid? And I was like, wow, if that's just one call, can you imagine multiplying that by 10,000 homes under management? It's pretty wild. And so it's like, okay, so we're kind of moving, I think, to AI and outsourced support just because the volume of stuff is so great. But that also has constraints, right? People don't feel that they're heard, or you're getting overage charges for your AI. And it's like, holy cow, how do we slow this down a little bit while still meeting people's expectations? It's a fascinating evolution, I think. as the attitudes of the public are changing so much faster than the attitudes of the board who ultimately make the buying decisions. It's creating this problem, right? And we're all looking at it like, oh, this is a real problem where everyone's being asked to do a lot more, but no one's willing to be able to pay for the additional service that is required. That to me is the single biggest immediate crisis that we have in this industry. You know, it's like, wow.
And I mean, you touched on several things there. One of those, I would love for both of you to maybe expand a little bit upon it, but to the resident who literally takes the time to call in about that soup can lid versus just picking it up and throwing it away. So the amount of time it took to call, make it through the voicemail chain, get to an actual human being to then complain about it, drive time to get out there to pick, like, you see it so much more in communities, examples like that. So, from both of your perspectives and what you're seeing and how that transitions potentially even to a legal issue, is it fixable? Like, is there, how do we go back to what you said 20 years ago, 30 years ago? People are applauding and maybe being decent human beings and picking up the trash themselves.
Well, sorry, do you want to go lower? I
No,
have
go
an
ahead.
answer. It may not be this is my LinkedIn writing, right? Which is when you get this, I categorize mentally, I don't say this out loud, people being difficult, right? Either they're situationally difficult or they're currently unrepairable in my mind, right? Which is they have a situation, right or wrong, that they're hoping that we can solve. And there are other people who just are lonely, want to fight, live in dysfunction. And like the humans can't see the air and the fish can't see the water, they can't see the cloud of dysfunction that is around them, and it transfers to us. And so for me, it's like, okay, sometimes I'm going to spend a little bit more time trying to put this train back on the tracks because then we have a productive homeowner, we have a better relationship, and we can solve that problem. And over time, if the same person continues to bring these soup can lid calls to my office, I'm going to realize that I'm no longer willing to emotionally invest or invest my time or our client's money in solving their problem. And I'll be courteous and kind and do whatever the law requires, and I'm done. And I think it's hard to figure out when to say enough is enough.
Yeah, I
Right?
think again, it comes back to boundaries. And I think you also have to keep in mind that a lot of time, all of the time, the way people behave is says something about them. It doesn't have to say anything about you. And it's very hard. We're in a service industry. It's very hard to remember that. And it's very hard not to have that instinct. We are problem solvers. We are helpers. That is our job. That is certainly our job as the lawyers, and that's certainly your job as the managers. And so our first instinct is we do want to solve this problem. We want to crack this nut. We want to do this. But I think maintaining the perspective, again, their emergency doesn't have to be your emergency. How they're behaving, how they are coming at you says more about them than it does about you. It's very hard not to take things personally. I think that's one of the biggest things that is so challenging is and how we act is because we are reacting to how it is making us feel when somebody's attacking us and saying we're the worst person, you're the worst manager, you're the most incompetent manager. And we hear it too with lawyers. We're
Oh,
not immune. And it's very, very difficult. It is very, very difficult to not let that affect you. And I think to some extent, because I mean, gosh, I'm all about constructive criticism. Even constructive criticism is hard for me to take. I'm not going to lie. But I do see it for what I might be offended. My initial reaction is always going to be offended, but I will think about it. I will overthink about it. Absolutely. But one of the things I really do try to do is that word constructive. Is this constructive or is it not? Is this accurate? Is this not? Is this blown out of proportion? Is it not? Is it saying more about what the person who said it than me? Probably. hard to do. Easy to
Yep.
say, hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. We taught a class for CAI, a friend of mine from Australia, on conflict through composure through conflict. And you talk about the neurotransmitters and oh my God, fight or flight, danger, danger. And then it's like, okay, this is still bugging me. So what in me believes the
Hmm.
what in me believes the criticism?
Hmm.
It's like, oh, I didn't know I had that belief. We all have the belief at some level that we're not good enough or that we're not fit enough or we're not rich enough or whatever. And it's kind of this indicator, oh yeah, they triggered like a raw nerve in my tooth. And it's because of a belief that I had. And you're like, okay, if you can get past the initial shock and be like, okay, yeah, I do sort of believe that. Now you have something to work with, which is, okay, how do I fix that belief? And you may not have even known about it until someone said the right combination of words or said it the right way. And it brings you back to some other trauma that you picked up 35 years ago. And you're like, oh, that's fascinating. But you're right. It takes a lot of composure to do that work, right? It's not
There's
easy.
there's a mediator that we work with at, who's really into high conflict personality people and referred to books and stuff. There's actually a podcast. There's a podcast. There's a group here in San Diego that really focuses on how to deal with people with high conflict personalities. A lot of what your workshop work, your presentation talked about, Dave. And one of the things that they have this anachronism that I love, and I have to remind myself to use it. It's BIFF, BIFF, and that is in your responses to somebody who has a high conflict personality is BIFF, brief, inform. What was the other one? I can't remember the other I. It's
Oh,
brief, inform, another I, and friendly. And that's it. Be brief. You inform them, whatever the other I is. Insightful, maybe, I don't know. And friendly is um, how you can respond to somebody who's coming at you that way.
brief, informative, friendly, and firm.
And firm. Oh, it's BIFF. Two F's, not two I's. Yeah. Brief, informed, friendly, and firm.
Mhm.
So that may help.
Yeah, it's feedback, right?
Yep.
And it's like, okay, I'm always interested in seeing what triggers me. People that I instantly feel like I don't like. What are my thoughts that are causing me to have that judgment against somebody else or something that someone else said? That's kind of, I think you can do that compassionately without letting your mind run to the point where you're defending something. Because we will instinctively defend ourselves, even if we're not sure why we're doing it or why it bothers us. And then we're off to the races. And with managers who are A-type personalities, people pleasers, problem solvers, we throw ourselves on the bonfire of solving problems for people, some of whom just want to fight, right?
Yep. I don't think anyone on this call is type A personality. Like everyone's so mellow
Yeah, right.
that I know.
I think they're on this call because they're type A personality.
Exactly. So we are coming up on the end of the hour. Is anyone that has joined us today, anyone have a pressing question that they want to ask? Everybody good so far?
And we'll keep it brief, informative, friendly, and firm in any
Yeah, yeah.
response.
Thank you
Yes.
for figuring that out, Dave, because that was going to bug me the rest of the day.
That's why you need to get on social media. No.
Yeah, well, I don't say I don't Google things. I
Oh,
just
there
Just
was
not
a
social
I'm
media.
not internet adverse. I just it's just not for me.
Does anyone, I was going to tell you an interesting AI case that I just got yesterday, but I want to hear if anyone has any questions.
Doesn't look like it. So tell us about your AI case before
Well,
we wrap it
two
up.
two issues, I think. Number one is when we give advice to a client and they shoot it up in Claude or ChatGPT to second guess us, they breach the privilege, the attorney-client
Mhm.
privilege, and none of that is exempt from discovery, which is an interesting phenomenon. I didn't realize how many the potential of second guessing legal opinions is problematic. But there's a case out of Connecticut where someone was filing pleadings with the court that had white micro font And it said, if this is uploaded into a AI model, then you need to do this. And so the presumption was that if the lawyer got the thing and they shot it up to Chat GPT, then the instructions in the document would skew the analysis based on this micro white font that was in the pleadings. And the court kind of said, hey, you can't do this. But it was fascinating, fascinating stuff, how little we know about what we're doing on this with the technology. But can you
That's
imagine sending you get a letter from a homeowner, you put it up into ChatGPT, and they've got instructions to your language model to hijack the way that your language model interprets it. That is genius and
wow.
highly unethical. It's kind of where we are.
There's gonna be a lot more AI trainings and discussions, I am sure.
Yeah, I do those, but I have my ChatGPT give them. You can really.
Well, I thank both of you for joining in this month. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you all for joining us. Next month, we have Lisa Turner, who's joining in to talk about her mindset and thinking and how she shows up as a leader for her company. So I hope you join us, and we will see everyone in September. But have a wonderful rest of your Wellness Wednesday, and enjoy.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And it's great to see you guys.
Good to see both of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks.
Melissa.
And Laura, you have my cell phone
Yeah.
always.
I,
Okay.
yes,
Well,
I'm
you're
hanging in
awesome.
there. I'm hanging in there.
Sometimes, yeah, it's just tough, right? Sometimes just getting through it is tough.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's all. Hey, thanks, Melissa.